Hello everyone and welcome back to episode 5 of Let's Build a Telephone series with Laravel and Twilio. So off camera, what I have gone and done is create an incoming call container which is hidden by default, and that will be our reject call and accept call. So as you could probably guess already, this episode we're going to focus on inbound phone calls and being able to accept or reject a phone call. So let's get started. So first thing, we're going to jump into our JavaScript code. And where we run the register phone event listeners function after we've registered our Twilio device, we're going to go into this function and we're going to comment it up first and foremost. And we're going to do device.on incoming handle incoming phone call. Device we're setting as a global variable and it's equal to the new Twilio device. So at this point we've got access to the Twilio device. That's going to fire event incoming, and we're going to run this function that we're about to create. Function to handle the inbound phone call. And for now, inbound phone call. We've got inbound phone call console logged. Then we want to jump into our backend. So when we register our device, we're given an access token. And within that access token, we're giving ourselves an identity, which I have hard coded to Matthew James. So that's the identity we're going to use to dial the front end. So what we want to do in our handle call routing function, which is handling the inbound and outbound call routing from our Twiml app, we've got if dial number is not equal to our Twilio caller ID, we know it's an outbound phone call. But then we've got dialed number is equal to our Twilio caller ID. So then we know it's an inbound phone call. So at this point, what we want to do is set up a dial/response. Dial equals response dial. And then voice response dial. And then we want to dial the client. Hard coded for now. So dial client Matthew James. And if we go back to that there, if it lets us, the first parameter is identity and then any attributes you want to then pass through to the front end. In this case, we're just going to bog standard dial the client. And then it's going to come down to this function, bit of code to return the voice response as a string. So let's save that and let's go on our front end. And what we're going to do is see if the call is actually being made. So let me get up my phone and get the number.
You have a trial account. You can remove this message at any time by upgrading to a full account. Press any key to execute your code.
So it is calling. So let's see. Don't think I refreshed. Let's give that one more go.
Trial account. You can remove this message at any time by upgrading to a full account. Press any key to execute your code.
There we go. That is perfect. So we've got the inbound phone call. We see when it's cancelled, but we have got the inbound phone call being logged. And then Twilio is saying cancelled. So now we can actually handle the UI. And one thing we do need to do is have a parameter on this called call, because that is going to be the request parameters from Twilio and the call in general. So inbound phone call from call.parameters.from, and that's a parameter that we get from Twilio's request. Then we want to handle the UI. So in this case, we want to hide digits container. Hide the digits container. We want to show incoming call container. And I've got a typo there. And what we also want to do is hide this button here, the call button, which is outside of the digits container. So we will do call button. All pretty easy stuff. And what we also want to do is update, and let me just find it, is, if I can find it, is the opacity one. This one, the call pad. So we want to show the call pad. We'll set the opacity to 1, which should show it. And then let's give this another go. So let's give it a hard refresh and let's do another call.
You have a trial account. You can remove this message at any time by upgrading to a full account. Press any key to execute your code.
Perfect. Inbound phone call. And it's calling and showing the right elements. Albeit it's then not hiding, not sending these buttons to the bottom, which we do want. So it's a bit annoying. And that doesn't. We really want to show them. And then when I cancel the call, as you can tell, the UI doesn't then update, which we also need to handle as well. But let's get these buttons sorted first, because that's really annoying. I think that'll do for now personally. So let's go and update the CSS. Incoming call container, and I've not set up any CSS for it, so let's add that in. Incoming call container. Right, so we've got that set up, and yes, it's not the best styling, but it's going to work for this instance. So then what we want to do is add a click event to the reject button first and foremost. So let's get that set up. And to do that, we're going to do that in our handle incoming phone call function. So listen for the reject call button to be clicked. Reject call dot on click. We're going to run a function at this point. And we're going to do, and we've got to pass the call because this is our Twilio call instance. So we want to reject the call. And when we rejected the call, we want to update the UI at this point. So what we then want to do is hide the call pad. So it's basically the opposite of what we've already done. Hide the call pad. That's 0. We want to hide the incoming call container. And then we want to show the other two elements as well. So let's give that a test. Let's give it a hard refresh and let's try again.
You have a trial account. You can remove this message at any time by upgrading to a full account. Press any key to execute your code.
Call.reject is not a function. Okay, well it should be because we've got access to the call, which is here, here. let's put it into a function. Reject incoming call. Let's give it another go and I will quickly give it another call.
You have a trial account. You can remove
This message is getting quite annoying though. Call.reject is not a function. It definitely is. It's right there. It's there. I mean, I shouldn't need to do that at all. Let's give it another go. Function. Now, normally, and this shouldn't be needed at the top. There we go. I'm not sure why it didn't work before when we was doing pretty much the same code. However, rejecting incoming phone call and it updates the UI. So we have got the rejection working. So now we want to actually do the accept side of things. Pretty straightforward as well for that. So what we want to do, get our accept call class, and we're going to do the exact same. Listen for the accept incoming call button to be clicked on. Click, and we're just going to follow what we've done above here. Accept incoming call. Pass the call parameter, semicolon, and let's create that function. So when an incoming call has been accepted, we want to update the UI and accept the call. So first, let's accept the call. And that is as simple as call.accept. Then we're going to console log just to make sure it's hit this function. Then we want to update the UI. So at this point, for the UI, what we want to do is show. We want to show the. So we're showing the call pad, aren't we, at this point, which is fine. But then we want to add the class. So let's see.
Thank you for using your demo account. Please upgrade to a
And that's what we want to do. So when we click this button, we want to replicate that code. So .call .on click, and it is basically was it the action dig dig.on click. I think it's this. Yes, I've got a feeling it is that. So we want to run that function, well, timeout. Let's just for now paste that in there. And I know it's duplicating of code, so you know, if you're a coder, you should be following the dry method, so do not repeat yourself. However, just for the tutorial purposes and getting the UI working as an example, let's just see if this works. So again, we're going to do another telephone call in and see if it works.
You have a trial account. You can remove this message at any time by upgrading to a full account. Press any key to execute your code.
Inbound phone call. We've accepted. I can hear myself, so it's definitely accepted. and it goes on to this and a timeout. That's perfect. We want to hide the accept button. We want to hide this button and show the end call button. And I do apologise for that echoing. I'll just take it off speaker for a minute. So that's perfect. With the timeout on this, we don't really want it to be 3 seconds. We want it to be relatively fast, 500 even. And that's 500 as well, so that's pretty much fine. So let's refresh this so it ends a call, and then the call on my mobile phone. And let's update the buttons. So at the point of accepting the call, update the UI. So incoming call container dot hide, because we don't need those accept or reject buttons anymore. And what we actually want to show is the end call button, which is this one. So hide incoming call buttons, show end call button. And then if we quickly just give that a call one last time, this should be what we want.
Anytime by upgrading to a full account, press any key to execute your code.
That comes on straight away. The end call button shows, the other buttons hide. However, we cannot end the call. So that's something we're going to need to have a look at in the next episode, especially because this episode is already getting a little bit long. But that should be a relatively straightforward fix, and we should be able to clear that up at the start of the next episode, and that should kind of bring this whole piece together really. We've got rejecting an inbound phone call, accepting, we've got making calls out, updating the UI on both sides, but we just need to be able to get that end call button to then trigger. And I think that is because it is part of our dot call on click. So what we want to do is hanging up the call from our end. So hang up telephone call. Let's see if this works. Function to hang up the telephone call. And let's paste that in there. Make sure that function is not anywhere else. So what we should then be able to do is register our hang up event listener here, technically. Right, let's just give this one quick go, and hopefully this works.
You have a trial account. You can remove this message at any time.
Blah blah blah.
To a full account. Press any key to execute your code.
So we've accepted, the button showing. Perfect. But the UI doesn't then update. But we can fix that, but it does end the call, and as you probably heard, it ended it on my phone as well. So functionality wise, it's what we want. We need to update the UI after we click end call, and maybe me putting it into a function there probably threw it off, or it may be the add in the event listener here and it's not working as we want it to. It's not showing the relevant fields and all that sort of thing. But that is something very simple that you can either sort yourself or we can sort in the next episode. But functionality wise, this is exactly what we want. So with this episode, just to recap, we have handled an inbound phone call, and if we go into our phone controller to recap on that, we've just set up a voice response dial function, and then we're dialing the client, which is our identity of the access token. Obviously, if you had multiple agents, you would use something like Task Router with Twilio to then handle which kind of agent you want it to go to. You may have a call routing system, call queues, and so forth. But for now, we're just hard coding that. And then on the front end, we're listening for when an incoming call is coming in. And that is obviously coming into this particular agent, in this case myself. We then going to handle the incoming phone call. We register our accept and reject call buttons, which then power these functions. They update the UI, and they also then register the end call button again to hang up the telephone call. We've got a set timeout, which is a duplication. We could refactor this and refactor the other set timeout to put it into its own function with a parameter as the timer potentially to use. However, I'm not going to go into JavaScript timeouts and that sort of thing. That is something that you can go away and research and modify and refactor. So yeah, I hope you've enjoyed this episode. And it's really starting to come together now as a fully working telephone as such. Obviously there's a long way to go, but this will work on its basic level. So yeah, I hope you learned something from this episode, and please leave a like and a subscribe, and yeah, look out for the next episode.